Hi, this is Diane Greco-Allen. I'm your food relationship coach, and today I'm going to go over some of the reasons why it's so important to incorporate mindful eating into your daily routine. So we're going to go over very briefly what the different types of secretions and actions that occur when you're eating. A lot of people don't think about that, but when you put food in your mouth, first of all, the nose tends to smell something. And that usually attracts some of those digestive juices to start being stimulated. And so that's the first one. But when you put your food in your mouth, it could be something you're putting on your lips that could cause some stimulation to your digestive enzymes or juices to start activating. So we're going to talk about the organ and gland, the target organ, secretion, and then the action. So I'm just going to go over these because we are dealing with a society that wants to eat so fast and just drink all their foods. And sometimes we bypass some of these digestive enzymes that should be, taking time to be triggered and processing your food and handling everything. And sometimes we just sort of like jump ahead. So the salivary glands, of course, are in the mouth and they secrete saliva. Um, they ease the swallowing and starts the breakdown of some of the carbohydrates. So if you're having swallowing issues, it might be that you're not allowing that food to be chewed long enough in the mouth to activate those salivary glands, or maybe you've exhausted some of those resources there, and then you want to take some time to figure out how to recalibrate that. So that's one. Now the gastric gland is in the stomach, and of course it's secretion of gastric juices. It mixes with the food that you put in, which is the bolus. And hydrochloride, okay, that is a big topic because a lot of people are put on antacids for the wrong reasons. And if you are put on antacids and then you're working against your body's own triggers and sensors to know when it's supposed to release some of these antacids on its own or stop the acid production. So some of the foods that we eat that have a lot of sugar in them cause a lot of acid production. And then the antacids are turned off. The acid production for the stomach to digest is turned off. There's a lot of little trinkets in there that's happening. They're like little charges and says, okay, no, messages are being sent this way and that way, and they get confused. And so the antacids that we sometimes tend to rely on actually don't really help digestion. So it's really about what you're putting in, when you're putting it in, and how much. So in a lot of the probiotics and things like that, sometimes you can overdo that. Some of the foods that you're using as a maybe it's vinegar to break down the food. Maybe that type of vinegar is not the right type of vinegar, or you're using way too much. Sometimes you just have to eat food naked. You don't want to put a lot of stuff on it. So the HCl breaks down and uncoils the protein. Enzymes break apart the protein, and the mucus protects the stomach cells. Okay, so you need some production of mucus. You need to allow this to happen. And if you're forcing this to be bypassed and you're just shoving things in like your garbage disposal, you're going to have some troubles. Okay, now we're going to get to my favorite topic, the pancreas. It's right up under your stomach, and the target organ is the small intestine. And this is why so many people are having such issues with their small intestine, or that small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because the pancreas is actually either overwhelmed or not able to function or maintain its production of what it's supposed to do. So there's pancreatic juice, and we also know it is an insulin hormone releaser, and so it's got two functions, exocrine and endocrine. The endocrine is the hormone. Bicarbonate Okay, what are we talking about all the time? pH balance. It's not just about balance, it's about the appropriate amount of pH in the stomach to help digest that food. So bicarbonate neutralizes the acidic gastric juices. But those gastric juices, like I said, if you're putting too much food in there that's creating more juice and all releasing all these gases in there, it's going to cause a lot of problems, and it'll cause a lot of problems down the road. So they break down the macronutrients, which are the carbs, the fats, and the proteins. Those are my PFCs, proteins, fats, and carbs. All right. So now we're going to go to the big organ. The big organ is on your right side. Sometimes you can get pancreatitis and hepatitis at the same time. Some of this is viral related. Some of it is because of what we eat. Some of these fatty conditions related to the liver and cholesterol issues can be related to how much of one type of food you're eating and what happens. So that when the food starts passing through, it goes through the sphincter after the stomach, that little sphincter is working, and then there's bile being squirted in. There's all kinds of little things that are happening, and there's little pumps and stuff going on to help digest your food. And so the liver is the next organ that helps to release that bile, to break up that fat. And bile is stored until it's needed, and that's in the gallbladder. And that's that little squirter. It almost looks like a baster, the rubber baster. And you want to think about that. When people have that gallbladder removed, it does affect the stress on the entire the liver. So I've experienced this multiple times, sphincter of Oddi dysfunction and things, and spasms from sphincter of Oddi disorder, that those can occur from eating, first of all, too many of the wrong fats, and then secondly, maybe just too many fats in general that your body can't handle at the same time that you're eating them. Okay, so you have to eat them in small incremental doses throughout the day. All right, so that's the liver. We talked about the gallbladder. That, again, the gallbladder, the liver, actually the target organ was the gallbladder. The gallbladder, the small intestine is the target organ. And again, if that gallbladder is gone, you're going to have some issues in your small bowel, because that is the target organ. And of course, it releases the bile when necessary. Those sensors pick up that there's fat coming through, and then the bile is released into the small intestine, the jejunum or duodenum. And you, over time, if you have one of those spasms, it goes straight through to your back. And it feels like somebody just like squeezed. You get a tightness sensation in your upper abdomen. There's all kinds of things going on in there. And you're like, oh my goodness, what is that? Why is that happening? So these things can also lead to gallstones if you're eating the wrong types of foods and you're not getting enough of the acidic types that help to break down the fats also. And that can be gone over more in detail if I work with you. Bile emulsifiers, actually the bile emulsifies fat so that the enzymes can break it all down, and so that that fat can be evenly distributed in your bloodstream to be broken down over a period of time. Remember, when we talk about the PFCs, we're talking about the length of how long it takes to break down the food, and you want to start up, you have to have the coverage of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And those carbohydrates are broken up into two areas, the simplex and the complex. The simple carbohydrate is the ones that you sometimes see when you're eating or drinking sugars. And those are the syrups and the sugars and the colas and all that stuff. And the ice creams has both sugar and fat, but too much of that can really cause some digestive issues. Intestinal glands. Okay, so we're talking about breakdowns of these foods in the small intestine. That's the target organ. Again, we've got the pancreas, the gallbladder, and the intestinal glands, all targeting the small bowel. And if those things aren't properly working or functioning up to par, then, or you have worn them down a little bit, from overeating the wrong types of foods, you're going to have small bowel dysfunction and overgrowths. Now, these intestinal juices are enzymes that break down the macronutrients, the carbs, the proteins, and the fats. PFCs, I call them, fragments, and then the mucus protects the intestinal wall. So there's got to be a production of mucus. Now, that mucus takes some water. You need to have fiber, and you also need to have foods that have both fiber and water. Because if you don't have both of those, you're going to have all this disconnected issues going on, like here and there, things aren't coming out like they should. Maybe you're starting to see that you're either running to the bathroom and food's just coming through you, or you're just getting all bound up in these small little knots throughout your gut and your intestine. And then therefore, you end up with, you could have a tourist bowel, you could have a blocked bowel, you can have all kinds of issues, can lead to colitis, it can lead to all types of dysfunction in the bowel wall and the bowel lining, and those little villi end up being destroyed or dysfunctional, and then things don't work as they go through. Now we're going to talk about gastrin. Gastrin is food that it responds to food in the stomach. So we're going to go back up because all of this stuff that's going on way up here is so important. So it means everything to be mindful about what we're putting in our mouth, how we're eating, the 5 W's. I've reviewed those many times. You can find that on my link tree. You can find that in my book. It might be your pancreas. You can find those 5 W's pretty much all throughout my different YouTube channels as I speak about them. And then, but that food in the stomach, the gastrin, it's secreted from the stomach wall. So you've got so many things working to help you digest your food. Now we got to work together. We got to get these things working functionally well. And the stomach glands that are in that stomach wall. So you don't want to peter out your stomach from all this stuff. And they say, oh, well, you can shrink your stomach. You can do this to your stomach. It gets too big. You turned it into one of those elastic type of stretch bands where it's just all stretched out. That could happen because of the rugae in there that helps to maintain that, getting the digestive juices and everything working. So that HCl is secreted in the stomach by the stomach, but also works in conjunction with that pancreas. You got to remember that these are things that work together. Secretin is an acidic kind in the small intestine. Okay, now, if things are all messed up in the beginning, then you get down to the small intestine, and that secretin's trying to do its thing, but actually, it says the small intestine, but it's the duodenal wall. So there's the duodenum and the jejunum. And I believe that is the duodenum is right after the stomach where the sphincter of Oddi is. And that sphincter of Oddi is connected to your gallbladder and the bile ducts from your pancreas and your gallbladder. So this secretin stimulates the pancreas, my favorite organ. Anyway, it's bicarbonate-rich juices secreted in the small intestine. Okay, I believe that's what they're saying, secretin. Okay, so now, these things all work together. We just want to remember to back everything up to how we're eating. And those 5 W's about when, why, where, and all, just what's going on around you and what you're embracing with your nutritional intake and how to nourish yourself. Cholecystkinin, you might have heard of these things. Fat or protein in the small intestine. Now, I might have to check on this because I'll get back to you and I will post underneath if I'm making an error. I would appreciate if you find that I'm making an error, please post so that I can correct that. But secreted from the intestinal wall, and it stimulates the gallbladder and the pancreas. Okay, Gallbladder and pancreas are so very important. If you've got a sluggish pancreas and you've got a sluggish gallbladder, things aren't working well, okay? You can see that with hypothyroidism. So it's a combination of many factors, and sometimes if you're stressed, burnout, anything that's going on in your life, these things can cause dysfunction. So gallbladder, of course, we're going to go back to the bile secreted in the duodenum or duodenum. And then the pancreas, which bicarbonate and enzyme-rich juice is secreted into the small intestine. So all these things, all these digestive processes are happening around us, inside of us, and sometimes we forget to just take our time and allow digestion so that we can have a functional bowel and that we can eliminate our foods properly without, you may have never known that you might have had some issues or had problems, or you've been dealing with them your entire life and thought, I thought that was normal. I thought it's okay. This is what I see. Everybody's taking the Imodium, everybody's taking Miralax, everybody's taking this, it's right there and over the counter stuff. And then you see diapers and you're like, why is everybody wearing diapers? So these things all matter because you want your bowel and your hemodynamics, that comes in with electrolytes and your sugar and all the things, sodium chloride and all those things that have to go together, calcium and magnesium, it all works together. So you have to be mindful of what you're putting in your mouth and mindful of how you're digesting your food to allow it to be absorbed. Now, there are some special conditions that might cause some little dysfunction here and there, but overall, you can address these issues. It's all in your hands. Diane Greco-Allen, food relationship coach. If you have any questions about these digestive enzymes and digestive juices, what's going on in your insulin levels, and do you have to be on insulin for life? Do you have to be on digestive enzymes for life? We can talk about that. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. And remember to subscribe to my channel and ring that bell to be notified each time that I make a new little video to share some great information with you. Have a great day.